Greetings, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to Topic UFO. Tonight we have a very interesting guest, one that you may have heard of before, and probably you have. Her name is Melinda Leslie, and she has been into ufology now for, 25 years, I think, 25 plus years. She currently working on UFO tours that she does out in the Sedona, Arizona area. But her experiences go way, way back. And we're going to be talking to her about all of those different types of things. She has personal experiences as far as abduction. You may have seen her on several different television shows. The one that pops into my mind was an episode of When UFOs Crashed My Vacation, or UFOs Crashed My Vacation. You may have seen her on that one. But very interesting lady here, so let's bring her on. Melinda, are you out there, ma'am?
Yes, I am. Hello.
How are you tonight, Melinda?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
Great, great. Melinda, you are one of the, I guess you would say, ladies of ufology. There seems to be this group of ladies out there in this group in ufology. How long now has it been, or has this been a lifelong thing for you?
Well, I've been very involved in ufology for about 24 years now. And I'm very proud to say, yes, I'm one of the women of ufology, as ladies, as you put it, and very proud to be part of that illustrious group.
So your story, I thought it started, as I said, I saw this television program called UFOs Crashed My Vacation. And there were several different stories on there, one of them being yours. The thing that caught my ear when I heard your story was where it happened. And it happened in Southern California, right around where I grew up, where I spent a lot of time. So, they were saying all these places that just... I said, I've been there. Can you tell us a little bit about that particular scenario that happened, I think, on the Angeles Crest Highway somewhere?
Sure. I'd be happy to. I think for your viewer, though, I'll give maybe a little bit of background first, if that's all right.
Absolutely.
I got involved in the UFO subject and in finding out about my abductions when in 1989, it's kind of a long story, but I'll try to give a short version here. A friend of mine was listening to a radio program. It was the breaking of the initial Bob Lazar Area 51 story. And it was the very first breaking of that. Researcher John Lear had met Gene Huff, a friend of Lazar's, who Lazar confided in about what he was going through while working at S4 on the reverse engineering of extraterrestrial craft. And he was being threatened at work and having harassment, this kind of thing. He confided in what he was going through in Gene. Gene said, I don't really have enough knowledge about this, but I just... I met someone that I think you should meet, and that was researcher John Lear. And Lear said, well, I need some kind of evidence and everything after hearing Lazar's story. So Lear ended up going out with Lazar and Gene Huff out to the end of, Groom Road, outside the Medlin Ranch area on Highway 375 in Nevada, and ended up seeing the test flights that Lazar said were happening like clockwork. And he went on this radio program called Billy Goodman's The Happening and talked about these amazing test flights and what they were seeing. And that show had such interest from listeners that they decided to rent a bus and take people out there to see this. And they announced it on the air. They ended up having such interest, they filled 2 buses, excuse me, and And they ended up taking out 2 buses of people, and they announced on the air. Well, this friend of mine said, let's go do this. And prior to that, I didn't really have an interest in the UFO subject, very little interest, if any. And but here, this friend of mine said, let's go do this. We went out on a fluke, total last-minute decision, out there to see these test flights and meet up with all these people coming out from the radio station. Well, we had amazing sightings. It was so incredible. We were seeing stuff drop out of a heavy cloud coverage, go like a falling leaf pattern, down to the ground, and then shoot up at an angle and stop, and shoot up at an angle and stop. It was amazing. So all of a sudden I had a major belief system change overnight, a paradigm change. I went, okay, UFOs exist. They're flying in and out of a known top secret military base. There were black helicopters up in the air. There were white Bronco security, Whack-and-Hut personnel, vehicles on the ground. And we're like, okay, there's the security involved, the base security, the helicopters are up, a few planes were up. And I thought, oh my gosh, not only does the government know about it, they're involved with it. So I had all these major belief systems change overnight. UFOs exist, and the way they were flying defied physics. The government knows about it, they're involved with it. And all that, and then it was so exciting. We went out 2 weeks later, had more sightings, and like a month after that. So in roughly a 2-month period, I'd taken 3 trips from where I was living in Southern California out to the middle of the Nevada desert and having these amazing sightings. Well, something about having those sightings was like inserting a key and turning it, because suddenly I had memories come forward of childhood and teenage and young adult abductions. And at first I thought I was losing my mind, completely. And through some researchers out there, somebody recommended a hypnotherapist, which was Dr. Deborah Troncalli. And what I liked about Deborah Troncalli is she was also a full-fledged PhD psychotherapist. So here she is, a psychotherapist doing hypnosis, working with a lot of abductees. And so I went and saw her. Not only did I have conscious memories, but I then was recalling under hypnosis additional information on top of that. And I've worked with many hypnotherapists now as well to recall memories. But for instance, I recalled being a child, my grandmother had a place in Yucca Valley, Southern California, out in the infamous Landers area, which is known in UFO research. And we would go stay up there as kids and visit my grandmother. And she had a little place in the middle of nowhere. It's like her, she had a neighbor like 200 yards away, owned 2 donkeys, and one of them named Kennedy. But and then the next closest neighbor was like, probably a mile away. So I had always had this memory of having experience of all the older kids and the adults going off to see a movie or doing something during the day. One adult staying behind to read a book, sit on the couch, and I was like 5 years old and put down for a nap on my grandmother's bed. And I always had this memory that little kids came to the bedroom window and wanted me to go play with them. Well, here it turned out in my dreams now surfacing after having all these sightings out at Area 51 that in the weeks and months subsequent to that, I had these dreams surface where suddenly it's like, wait a second, these weren't little kids coming to the bedroom window, but they were gray aliens. And then I had an additional experience where I went to bed one night. Besides having the memories of child and teenage years, I had a current time experience in must have been about November of '89. A roommate of mine and I had a very interesting discussion that night, and we had a 2-story townhouse. We went to bed. I was an office manager at the time and had to work the next morning. I sat my alarm next to me. I'm one of those people, I'll double, triple check an alarm. I made sure exactly what time it was. After our talk, I realized if I got to bed right then, I'd have exactly 7 hours of sleep before my alarm would go off. And I sat on my bed after this discussion we had and did a quick little meditation so I could, calm myself before going to bed. And just a quick little visualization exercise. And I reached to turn out the light, and I, again, double-checked the alarm and realized it was 2.5 hours later, and there was no way I was sitting on my bed for 2.5 hours. I was sitting on my bed for like 2 minutes. And so suddenly I had a missing time period of 2.5 hours. And I instantly recalled 3 gray aliens next to the bed in my room. I couldn't get them out of my head. I went to work. I eventually calmed myself, went to sleep, went to work the next day, was really worn out, had only a few hours of sleep, was very stressed out at work. I came home that night, and my roommate said, "What happened to you last night?" And I said, "Well, what do you mean what happened?" She said, "Well, I couldn't sleep," she said, "and I sat in my bed reading a book, and I thought I heard someone downstairs, like maybe someone had broken in." And she said, "So I went to look to see who it was. When I came back up, I realized your light was on in your room. Your door was closed, but the light was on under the door." And she said, "I went back downstairs looking for you. I went outside. Your car was parked in our carport, but I couldn't find you anywhere." So she said, "I came back upstairs, and I knocked on your door, and there was no answer. So I knocked a little harder, no answer." So she said, "I pounded." She said, "Then I panicked, like was something wrong?" She said, "I opened your door, and it was like 3 o'clock in the morning, and you weren't there." And she said, "You weren't in your room."
Wow.
And then later, even she confided when she went back to bed, she kept her door to the hallway open. She saw a light flicker in the hallway, expecting that maybe I had flipped the switch on and off really fast coming back upstairs. She looked expecting to see me in the hallway, and stood in the hallway and stepped forward and stood in the door to her room was about a 3.5-foot gray. It came up just past the handle on her bedroom door and looked right at her, and it went through my closed door into my room. So here my roommate witnessed that I was gone during my period of missing time and witnessed a gray alien in the hallway. So all of this helped me to come to realize not only had I had past experiences I was remembering, but I was having present experiences as well. And then moving forward to the one you just brought up, so I'll get there, which is the one you just brought up, that I was on the Travel Channel show called UFOs Crashed My Vacation. They covered 6 different stories of people who had had abductions and sightings while traveling. And I was in very good company on that show. The show had the Allagash abduction story with the three of the 4 gentlemen involved in that story who have come forward and been very public for many, many years. But the 3 of them were on it. Denise Stoner, a very well-known abductee who's written a book along with Kathleen Martin. One of her stories with her and her husband on a trip being stalked in their car, etc. And Ruben Uriarte, very well-known, who had an experience of sightings and a crop circle formation. So, but regardless, there were 6 different stories, and I was in very good company. And but the story they covered, which was the one you asked about, which was myself and 2 male friends traveled on a mountain road, and the 3 of us got taken together from the car. Yes, it was Angeles Crest Highway in Southern California. We were traveling out from where my friend Mike lived in the La Mirada area. We originally left there. We were taking a shortcut to go out to the Lancaster Palmdale area of Southern California, and we decided to go over Angeles Crest Highway as a shortcut rather than go out, I think, what is it, the 215 out to the 14 freeway, but to take it a little bit of a shortcut. We had driven it many times. We knew how long it should take to drive this road. And we had a period of about at least 2, maybe 2.5 hours of missing time, maybe even 3, between 2 and 3 hours of missing time while driving this road. And what was really special on that TV show, it was the first time that my 2 male friends had ever gone public with me. They'd never been public about the experience, only privately with me. All 3 of us, separately from each other, got hypnotic regressions by Deborah Troncalli. This was back in 1990. The experience happened in July of 1990. And Deborah later, after, took about a year before each of us had gotten regressed, but she later came back to us and said all 3 of us clearly recalled the identical same experience.
Yeah. Now, I noticed on that television program, the 2 male friends of yours, I think they were recorded in silhouette. So I guess I take it they didn't want to come out fully public, but they wanted to talk about it.
I won't. Yeah, I'm sorry to talk over you, but yes, exactly. One of them works for a leading aerospace company and has signed non-disclosure agreements, not anything UFO related, of course, but right. Very secret clearance kind of things. And so he thought, it's probably not breaking his security. He was concerned that it could jeopardize his job. And then the other one works for a city in Southern California. Again, I won't go into the detail, but he was a little bit concerned. They were filmed together on the same day. One of them did it in silhouette. because he was worried about his job. The other one said, go ahead and film me in silhouette as well, when he was originally going to go on camera. But I understand that. It's very hard to come public about this. People are very concerned about losing their jobs. What are their family going to think? What are their coworkers going to think? And so one had a real good reason to be concerned about his job. The other one did it mostly because the first one did, which is okay. I understood they were there. I think if asked to be interviewed again, one of those gentlemen next time would probably be willing to go on camera.
Yeah, no, I can totally understand the need for anonymity. I think it was great that they just came on the show and gave their audio portion of it, because it really brought a lot to the show.
As an abductee, yeah, absolutely. As an abductee, who's been public about my experiences for about 24 years, to have my two friends who are involved in one of the experiences be willing to go on television with me and back me up was hugely emotional for me. I mean, I was so proud of them, first off. I knew the courage that it took, and just their validation of the experience and the credibility it brought to it ended up being, emotionally, I guess cathartic is the word for me. And when I watched the show air on TV the first time, I cried, because it was so significant to me to have them go on and back me up. Now, luckily, I've had many experiences where I've been taken with other people, and one of my covert experiences that I was taken with someone else, that person's been very public in talking about their participation in that experience. So this is not the only time, but it was just, I think because it was a major network television show, and to have them go public for me was huge for me.
So, I mean, do your friends ever say, I don't want to go anywhere with you, Melinda, because something might happen?
No, people have said that on my tour, like, are we going to get abducted? Oh, just so people know, I know we can talk about that more later, but I live in Sedona, Arizona. I am now doing this interview from my office, which is the UFO Research Center at the Center for the New Age here in Sedona. It's on Highway 179, across the street from a very famous little Spanish-style shopping complex called Tlaquepaque. But address is 341 179 Highway 179, Sedona, Arizona. And this is my office. But behind me is a map of all of the Sedona and surrounding area. And I don't know if it shows up on the screen, but I have all these pins on it where whenever I get a really good UFO report, a paranormal report, a Black Ops encounter report, I put the pins on there. Excuse me. And then the pictures go with the pins. So the pictures around it are of all the various UFO and other sightings in the area that I have around the map. So I thought that'd be a good background for this interview. But I am currently sitting in my office in Sedona.
Well, let's go ahead and jump to the future a little bit here and talk about these tours that you give. When did you start these tours? And did it start off kind of small, and has it grown over time, or what?
Well, yes. I moved out here to Sedona to start these tours. I take people out with military night vision goggles to have UFO sightings. I've taken out now about 305 tours. Out of 305 tours, only once did I have clients feel that they didn't have a sighting. All the other times we've had sightings. And I never dreamt in a million years when I started doing these tours we'd have as many sightings as we do. There have been probably less than 20 tours where we've seen 4 or less sightings. As I said, only once did I have clients feel they didn't have a sign. And all the other tours, we've seen 5 or more. And from like January till now, this year, it's now, June 2014. From January to now, we're averaging 10 to 30 sightings every night. I mean, we're having a lot. In fact, one day I kind of looked at my records of sightings and picked a low conservative average stretched out over 300 tours, and realized the low, really super conservative average was 10 sightings per tour, which means we've had over 3,000 sightings. And it even boggles my mind. I never dreamt in a million years we'd have this, but we do. We've been very blessed to have some phenomenal sightings on some of those. I mean, we recently on a tour, I can give all sorts of examples, but recently, as an example, we had three craft flying in formation, in a triangle formation, three separate objects flying along, and all of a sudden from another area of the sky came another one in really fast, joined up with them, and then we had four things in unison, like 2 and 2, like in a square, flying in unison. So it went from being 3 in unison to a fourth one coming in, joining them, and then having 4 things in unison. I mean, this is the kind of stuff we see. It's really fun. I love taking people out. I love changing people's paradigms. I mean, it's a cliche in ufology to say seeing is believing, but it's so true. There is nothing like having your own personal experience. And I've taken out a lot of skeptical people. I take out professional pilots, astronomers, satellite experts, all this, really qualified witnesses and skeptics and, mom and pop and the kids as well. And I love doing it. I love providing the experience to people because once you've had your own sighting, no one can tell you otherwise. You know what the truth is.
And how important are those night vision goggles in seeing the sightings that you see? Are these things that you would not be able to see without these goggles?
Yes, that's a very good question. The night vision goggles, we use PVS 7A Generation 3 military night vision goggles. They increase light by over 20,000 times. So it's like increasing our chances of having a sighting by over 20,000 times. Sedona, Arizona, in fact, all of northern Arizona is a well-known hotspot for UFO sightings. Sightings have been reported in the Sedona and the surrounding area, and for instance, Phoenix, is probably many of your viewers know, for a long time. So it's always been a hot spot. The night vision goggles allowing for 20,000 times more light. So yes, it increases our chances. About half of what we see each night you can see somewhat with the naked eye, but we are predominantly seeing lights at high altitude. Now we have seen close-up, fully structured craft, meaning, something like you'd see in a famous, Billy Meyer photo or something, or on, a really good video on YouTube. We have seen structured craft on 7 of the tours. On 7 tours, we've seen stuff very low, very close. One time was a big black triangle. 2 times we had great big discs all lit up. One time was a big teardrop shape. Another time was a big round sphere. So yes, we have seen structured craft on 7 tours. All the other times we're seeing lights at high altitude, but I educate everybody on satellites, planes, and shooting stars, so we're able to rule those things out. And for instance, when we see 2 or 3 things flying in formation, locked in perfect unison, same direction, same speed, you're not seeing satellites. When we see something make a sharp, abrupt, right angle, 90-degree turn, you're not seeing a satellite. So we're seeing things predominantly at high altitude, and yes, that's where the night vision goggles help because they increase light. But again, about half of what we see each night, you can even see with the naked eyes, but the people holding the goggles can just see it that much better.
Wow. And why do you think it is that Arizona, or at least that part of Arizona, is such a hot spot and has been for so long? I've had several people on the show from Arizona, and they all talk about it as a hot spot. But what is it about that area you feel makes it such a hot spot?
Well, about northern Arizona in general, I'm not sure that I really know why. The Native Americans in northern Arizona, going back thousands of years, said they had regular contact with the Star People. So it has a historical reference and kind of an ancient alien reference to being a UFO hotspot. Sedona itself, the leading theory is it's our vortex energies here. Certain of our rock formations have these increased electromagnetic fields. And I took out an engineer one night who had a wonderful theory, and I thought it was the best explanation I'd heard. And he said, what if their navigation systems are just locking onto this area, and because of those increased fields of energy, they're just locking on, so when they come and go from the Earth's atmosphere, they tend to come and go from these places of power. And often, worldwide, the places that are UFO hotspot locations just happen to coincide with these places of of power, of energy and power, with a history of being famous for, having energy or power of some kind. And so it could be they're naturally locking on, and that's why Sedona in particular is a hot spot. I thought it was a great theory, so I love sharing what he shared with me.
That's interesting. That is very interesting. And just in personally speaking, Melinda, what do you think they're here for? Because, obviously if there's these craft flying around, something's flying them. Of course, we have your experiences of abduction. If we were to say absolutely these ETs exist and they're flying around up there, what are they doing up there flying around? Why haven't they made full contact with us yet?
Well, obviously they have made contact big time.
Well, but I mean,
First off, okay, why they're here? Well, I tell people on my tours as an example, so I'll start with that. I tell people on my tours, we're like sitting next to a freeway watching cars go by. So when people say, when we're having sightings, why are they here? What are they doing? Where are they coming from? Where are they going? I said, we're sitting by a freeway watching cars go by. If we sat next to a freeway and watched cars, could you tell me where they're coming from, where they're going, and why they're here? No. So on my sighting tours, I said, look, it's just like sitting by a freeway. There's no way to know. But in general, I think there could be a lot of reasons why they're here on Earth. There's a lot of theories in the research community. Certainly that they might consider us a threat because of our development of nuclear weapons and technologies, and we're fast speeding up, and they could see us as, well, we got to watch what these guys are doing because they're going to be interacting with us really soon. So that's one part. And then the other part is, we're out here as researchers kind of guessing when there are, I should say, proper English here, that there are people who are involved with the shadow government, with the military and intelligence communities who know full well exactly what's going on here. There's supposedly well over 70 some odd crash retrievals of alien craft. I mean, that's from the research of Ryan Wood, but I think there's, worldwide, even possibly more cases than that. But let's say that there are many crash retrievals, back engineering of those programs, insiders that have come out, freedom of information documents leaked. I mean, and then as an abductee, I research and I've had the experiences of what's called MILAB, or MILAB, which just is an acronym for military, MIL, an abduction with AB. So military abduction, that's kind of the catchphrase that's bounced around now in the abduction research community. But it basically refers to abductees who get targeted because they've had these ET experiences by covert human agencies. And so they have harassment, surveillance, being followed and watched, having their lives monitored, and some of them get picked up by these covert agencies, interrogated about their abduction experiences, have follow-up medical procedures, a lot of interrogations about technology. But I think it's really important to also note, when you really look into these cases of the number of abductees, which is actually quite a few, who are having these experiences, that these experiences are often reported as seeing aliens and military working together, or aliens and humans in lab environments working together. So that's very common. So obviously there are human agencies involved who know a lot about this subject, who are involved with the ETs, involved with reverse engineering and developing the technology, involved in what is called a secret space program, that they know very much about this. Obviously, for profit reasons, for financial reasons, they're not disclosing their involvement. And so we have this policy of non-disclosure on the subject. But we're left out here as researchers saying, well, why, what's going on, what do they know, and because they're not talking. So we have to get to that same information through a lot of uncovering, through a lot of research, and by a certain amount of trusted insiders who have come forward to share what they know about it.
Gotcha. What would you tell someone who feels they've been abducted? Of course, they're probably very fearful. They're wavering back and forth whether to go public. What would be your suggestion to someone like that?
Well, you're not alone. Find a qualified researcher or therapist in the UFO field. It could even be outside the UFO field, but make sure that it's somebody open to the subject matter. It helps if it's somebody who's worked with hundreds of abductees. We're very fortunate in the field that we have some really good therapists who've worked with hundreds, if not thousands, of abductees, and they're extremely good and can be very helpful. On my website, I have a list of questions. A known abductee who has written about her own experiences, Nadine Lalich, and myself worked together to compile this list. We took the list of many of the research organizations out there and other researchers in the abduction subject to compile a list of what we felt was the top 65 traits of whether somebody has had this experience or not. And you can get to that by going to my website, which is SedonaNewAgeStore.com, and then go /Melinda. That's my page with my information, or /UFO-Tours is all the UFO tour information, so please look at that as well. In both places, there are links to this list of "Are you a contactee?" list of traits. It's called I think it's called "Have you had extraterrestrial contact?" I think that's what it's called, something like that. I forget the exact name right now.
Okay.
But you'll find that list of 65 traits. And if you go through that, if you go through it quickly, don't worry about it. Don't take a lot of time. Just yes, no, yes, no. If you answer yes to a lot of things on there, you do want to seek out an abduction researcher, at least someone in ufology, maybe your local MUFON, Mutual UFO Network, someone who can direct you to someone who works with abductees. And if you have buried memories, if you have any repressed trauma, if you have traumatic memories, definitely get hypnotic regression. It will help you a lot in recovering those memories and knowing and finding out exactly what has happened to you. But also then, once you've got hypnotic regression, once you start to recover those memories, I think it's really important to have a well-developed support group. Get involved with a support group. Get involved with an organization of other abductees. And so you learn that what is happening to you is often what happens to other people. You're certainly not alone.
Very good advice. Very good advice. Well, listen, we're getting down on time here, and I wanted to ask you just a little bit about this center that you work with or are part of. Do you do other things besides the tours? What is that all about?
Yes, I do. Well, I came out of what I call the psychic closet. I came out of the abduction closet about 24 years ago, but now I've come out of what I call the psychic closet. I also am a psychic reader here at the Center for the New Age, a channel and a medium. I help people with every aspect of their life, and I also do mediumship work, which is deceased loved ones. So I do that as well. So I do my readings. I also teach some classes. Currently, I've been teaching a class in psychokinesis or spoon bending, which is bending metal with your mind, which is an amazing way to empower people to learn that your mind puts out a frequency all the time. That frequency affects all matter around you all the time, whether you have control over it or not. If you can learn to control it, you can manifest your goals, dreams, and visions by learning to control that frequency. And by learning the spoon bending, it's just realizing you have that power, you have that ability, your mind can affect matter. And I love teaching that to people. And often my students are much better benders than I am. So I teach that class, I do the readings, but the real reason I came to Sedona was for the UFO tours. And of course, I still do abduction research. I work with the covert ops abductees, the MyLabs, the individuals who have had alien abduction, who get re-picked up and targeted by these human agencies because they've had the alien abduction. I mostly focus on helping the abductees. I'm not a therapist myself of any kind. I'm just another experiencer, but I've researched that subject now for over 22 years, and I'm finally back to writing a book that I've had shelved to move out here and everything. I kind of stopped writing it 4 years ago. I'm finally back to starting to work on it. Please don't anyone hold your breath. It's going to take me a couple of years to get it done, but I am working on that book, and it's going to be a process, but I'm really excited to be back to it. And so, I'm working, I'm doing the tours, I'm doing my book. I do interviews like this and TV, like I talked about, and occasionally speak at conferences. And I just try to be a voice for many people who are out there too afraid to talk. But, one thing I'll share is everyone who's had the alien abduction experience, sometimes that's very traumatic, sometimes it's not, sometimes it's beneficial, sometimes it's not. All abductees have their own reaction, their own response to it. But every case that I work with that has had the covert ops involvement, who have had military personnel, human doctors, who've been picked up, interrogated, or had harassment and surveillance, and sometimes it can be very invasive in someone's life. Everybody I know who's had that kind of experience, everyone I've interviewed, which is well over 100, it may even be over 200 people now that I've interviewed, but everyone I know who's had that experience says, without a doubt, their covert ops experiences are worse than their alien ones. And I hear that from everyone.
Wow. I've never heard that. That is kind of scary, isn't it?
Well, it's not so much scary. It's because the alien abductions are absolutely real that there is any human interest. What the humans are interested in from the abductees, from the interrogations and the procedures that go on, they're interested in the alien agenda and motives. They're interested in, does the abductee have psi abilities, like psychic, PSI abilities? Do they do telepathy, telekinesis, psychokinesis, remote viewing? Are you skilled at those things? Have the aliens taught or enhanced that in you? They're also interested in the abductees' genetics. Have the aliens affected your genetics? Why are they interested in you genetically? Have you had hybrid children? What is it about your genes that the aliens are interested in? It's long been known in abduction research that alien abductions goes back in people's families. Many alien abductees realize that their parents were abductees, their grandparents. If you're an alien abductee, you have children. It doesn't happen, unfortunately, but it also happens to your children. But this is very common now in abduction research. So there's this genetic, genealogical, historical, component of. And then, but most predominantly, the covert people are mostly interested in what you know about alien technology. Have you flown or navigated a craft? Have you worked its controls? Do you know about the propulsion system, the navigation system, alien weapons, specific pieces of alien technology? Have you received alien technical information, alien sciences, alien math, writing, formulas, that kind of thing. So if you're an abductee who has had a lot of hands-on experience and have seen or have had technology explained or shown to you by the ETs, then the covert ops folks are very interested in you. And but it's all four of those categories, mostly the technology, but like I said, alien agenda and motives, alien and human genetics, the alien and human psi or PSI psychic abilities, the telepathy, that kind of thing, and again, predominantly the technology and what you know about it.
Well, do these covert experiences ever get, a little nasty with them pressuring people or pressuring abductees to give them information, even if they don't want to?
Oh, of course. It's done with a lot of hypnosis, drugs, fear, like I said, drugging, hypnosis, intimidation, fear, a lot of threats. Yeah, it can get pretty rough. Wow. And some abductees have even been beat up in their experiences. A well-known abductee, Stan Romanek, comes to mind, who's had at least 2 experiences of being pretty roughed up. I've had many cases of people, particularly guys. If you're a guy and you argue and fight with them, you have a tendency maybe to get a little more manhandled, a little more rough-handled. Some women have been too, but it doesn't seem quite as bad. But what they have done with women, I mean, not to get too dramatic for your TV show or anything, but what they have done with some women is rape, and the fear of rape to intimidate them. So yes, it can get very rough. Now again, that's the most negative aspect of it. Some people just have low-grade harassment surveillance. You probably have heard of the infamous black helicopter harassment, being harassed by black helicopters, having phone monitoring, being watched, being followed, having MIB, Men in Black experiences. So there can be a lot of lower-grade levels of harassment that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get picked up and have the furthering stuff happen. And some abductees have medical things done with them, again, because the covert ops are looking for those 4 predominant areas of research. And this is happening to a lot of abductees. I mean, and a lot of abductees have, like I said, the phone monitoring, phone tampering, computer hacking, email hacking, all this kind of stuff is unfortunately very common with a lot of abductees. And it's on the increase. I mean, I'm getting more and more cases all the time. And what started me, just so the viewer knows, what started me investigating that was my own personal experiences of it. And I've had a lot of harassment surveillance experiences, and I've had possibly as many as 9 reabductions. Now, I have worked with a lot of cases that have had a lot more than me, and of course, I've worked with people that have just had low-grade harassment surveillance. So it can be everything from low-grade to very extensive. Some abductees even get recruited into further programs like PSY programs, military psychic programs, PSYOPs programs. Some abductees get recruited into being a liaison, a communicator with the ETs. And so some people can go much further. So I'm kind of a middle-of-the-road case. I've had people with a lot less than me, and I've had cases with a lot more than me.
Wow. Wow. Well, listen, Melinda, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us tonight. I really appreciate it. Can you give out your website one more time?
Sure. You can go to SedonaNewAgeStore.com
Okay.
/UFO-tours, TOURS, plural. And or you can go to SedonaNewAgeStore.com /Melinda, and that'll take you to my general information. It's all linked up, so if you go to any of those, you'll eventually find everything.
Very good, very good. And I tell you, if I make it out that way, I would definitely love to go on one of your tours. How much in advance do you usually ask people give you for these tours?
I get people signing up last minute, and I get people in advance. If you know you're coming out, make reservations in advance, so that way, first come, first serve. Right. Whoever signs up first gets to go, because there are some nights where I do turn people away. Of course, weather has to be good. If it's too cloudy, I don't go out. So if you're coming out for multiple days on it, to Sedona, Arizona, or you're coming to Phoenix and you want to come up here, I recommend planning to go with me the first day you're here. That way, if it's cloudy or the weather's bad, we have options to still go.
Gotcha. Very good. Well, it sounds very interesting. You have definitely led an interesting life, Melinda. I must say.
That I do. No, you're very right. Yeah, to say the least.
Well, again, thanks so much for being here tonight, sharing this information and your experiences with us. Very much appreciated. And,
you're very welcome.
We will definitely stay in touch, and you just have a great evening.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Okay. Good night, Melinda.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Open the door, you'll find the secret. To find the answer is to keep it.